What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. And ladies and gentlemen, we have ourselves quite the show for you all, as we have a busy show such as the MIVA in men's volleyball. Who won this past week, who lost, and who is still in the hunt to win the regular season conference title? Also, how about FAU Beach Volleyball knocking off LSU? The Tigers go down. See what I did there? But really, good job to FAU. That's amazing. Good job to Florida Atlantic. We've got a busy week in NCAA men's volleyball as Long Beach State and UC Santa Barbara will be duking it out for Big West court supremacy. So hand me a volleyball, set up the net, as I'm about to serve you up some volleyball action here on Set Point. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of Set Point here on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome all to another edition of Set Point. I hope you all are having a great Sunday afternoon, because I am. For those of you that are wondering why is Set Point on a Sunday and not on a Monday, well, because I've got a busy week ahead of me, and more importantly, I just don't have the time to do it on any other day. I was thinking about doing it Thursday, but then I would have to cram it into 1 hour, and I didn't want to have to do that, so for me, it was either do it today or don't do it at all, and no matter what the circumstances are, I love doing Set Point, and I like being consistent, especially with this show. So without any further delay, let's get on in to that volleyball action. Hang on a second real quick. Sorry about that, had to cough a little bit. Not feeling too hot today, but the show must go on. So before we get on into the volleyball action, let's get on into the sponsor for iSports Radio. iSports Radio is proud to call the Southern California Warriors semi-pro football team the official sponsor of iSports Radio. The world of semi-pro sports is unlike any other sports organization. Players pay to play in hopes of so many different outcomes, whether it's playing to get filled and trapped for professional teams, big-time colleges, or just playing to stay in shape. No matter what, all semi-pro players have one thing in common, and that's playing for the love of the game. The SoCal Warriors have been on a quest to earn titles and give players second chances since 2017. Whether you're in Southern California or anywhere in the world, give semi-pro sports a chance if you love your sport. You may get the second chance you've been waiting for as an athlete. You can follow them on Twitter at SoCal Warriors, on Instagram at Southern California_Warriors, and on Facebook by typing in the word Southern California, then Warriors. And iSports Radio is on Twitter and on Instagram at iSports Radio, and on Facebook by typing in the word IE, then Sports, then Radio. And for the past 7.5 years, iSports Radio has been bringing you amazing content, ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, other authorized media personnel, and building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities and all major sports around the world. All the while, iSports Radio has continued to be by the fans and for the fans. And with your help, we are ready to take the next biggest step. When you go to the website, www.isportsradio.com, you'll see a Patreon link with a tier list of 5 different tiers, with the first one starting out at $5 a month. This donation gets you a shout from all 32 of our shows, and higher tiers include iSports Radio merchandise, access to IESRU, the podcasting university of iSports Radio, and even a chance to be featured on a segment of iSports Radio's flagship show, The Defining Moment. Thank you, everyone, for making iSports Radio what it is today. And thank you very much for continuing to make IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that sports. And the 2022 NFL Draft is right around the corner. IE Sports Radio is excited to announce its third annual mock draft challenge. The rules are simple. Predict all 32 first-round picks. No trades, no modifications, no tricks, no pass and go, no collecting $200, none of that. The participant who has the best or most accurate mock draft will receive a shout-out on all of IE Sports Radio shows and their choice of an IE Sports Radio hat or shirt. For more information or to submit your pick, please reach out to Mike Pat at letswine_IESR. His Twitter is also in the description of this show. Good luck. And IE Sports Radio's fan of the month is at Marseille_Vargas88. She is a Packers fan hailing from Mexico. Also, March is the time for NCAA March Madness men's and women's basketball. Are you unable to catch one of the games? Well, then IE Sports Radio, USRN, and USRN2, along with Wellington Sports Radio, have you covered, as our entire family of networks will be broadcasting all of these games live and direct on the Mixlr app. So as long as you have the Mixlr app and you can just type in USRN, USRN2, Wellington Sports Radio, and IE Sports Radio, you're golden. We also do other sports such as volleyball, basketball, football, baseball, the list goes on and on. Now, without any further delay, let's get on into the volleyball action. So, there wasn't really much happening in terms of NCAA men's volleyball. There was only really one upset. There weren't really too many exciting matches. Like I said last episode or last week, most of the teams were on bye because they either had finals or they had midterms or any of that sort. The MIVA was super busy, however, as there were plenty of noteworthy matches. Starting off with Ball State versus Ohio State on Wednesday. It was Wednesday, the day before St. Patrick's Day. So Ball State traveled down to the Covelli Center in Columbus to take on Ohio State. So the first set, the whole match was basically this team was controlling this set, as Ball State never trailed, but there were 5 ties. And to the credit of Ohio State, they really battled back to try to take down Ball State. Unfortunately for Ohio State, Ball State won the first set 26-24. But then the second set, Ohio State showed that it is resilient as heck. They dominated the second set, never tied, never trailed, and won the second set 25-18, evening the match at 1 set apiece. The third set was also very tight. Despite Ball State not trailing, they only tied twice, and they basically they had firm control over that third set, as they won at 25-23, leading the match 2-1. You have to give credit to Ohio State. They did not back down from this challenge. Ball State is a top 10 team, but Ohio State was ready for this. Now, the fourth set, Ohio State did not trail, and it was not tied at one point, as they took the fourth set 25-19. And just like that, Covelli Center is rocking. They're believing. It's 2 sets apiece going into set 5. Now, the fifth set, this was the only set with lead changes, as there were 2 lead changes. It looked as if Ball State was going to pull away, but then Ohio State had the lead. Then Ball State just made one final push, and they won that fifth set 17-15. It was a tight set overall. The fact that it had to go deuce really shows the growth and how the MIVA is not your grandma's conference. It's basically a tough conference night in and night out. As Ball State surprisingly didn't really dominate in most of the categories outside of kills. They were outdug 55-47. They didn't register one service ace. They hit 327 compared to Ohio State's 358. And they were also outblocked 12.5-8. So the fact that Ball State won that is kind of intriguing if you ask me. They did have 2 players in double digits in terms of kills that had 20 or more, as Angelos Mandelaris had 23 kills, while Caleb Jennis added 22 kills. That's quite the number for both those players. And then Vanis Buckholz added 11 kills. He hit 556. Quite impressive if you ask me. So overall for Ball State, they didn't have the stats that everyone thought they would have, but they were able to basically have good games individually. They also got 13 digs from Quinn Isaacson, who also had 62 assists, which is quite nice. Ohio State, on the other hand, was led by Jacob Pasteur, who had 23 kills, while Samuel Clark added 18 kills. And Ethan Talley, I've seen this player in action. He had 12 kills on 13 swings. Not the same performance that was impressive like Toby Easy Onu's when Penn State toppled Long Beach State, but just as good, just because he didn't have the big-time number as Pasteur, but he had an efficient game, so it was quite nice. Also, Samuel Clark chipped in 16 digs, while Parker Mikish added 10 digs as well. He even added a kill as well. So, all in all, for Ohio State, they really showed up, and they defended the Covelli to the best of their ability. They're just still waiting for that big win. I know they had a big win against USC early in the season, but that kind of was early on, and they haven't really had a big win ever since. So Ohio State's still looking for that big breakout win, that win that's going to help propel them in the MIVA tournament. The two teams actually met on Saturday. I said they were going to meet Friday, but instead they met on Saturday just to show, just as a memoration of Dr. Don Shondell, the late Dr. Don Shondell, who passed away. So my condolences to the Shondell family. And Ball State was able to defeat Ohio State in four sets. They took the first two sets. Ohio State, to their credit, inched their way to winning the third set. And then the fourth set went to Ball State. So with these two wins, Ball State still remains ahead of the MIVA. But they also had to deal with Loyola, who, despite getting a battle from Purdue of Fort Wayne, they were able to win the next three sets. They dropped the first set, but then the next two sets they won quite handily. So with that win for Loyola of Chicago, and with the tiebreaker so far over Ball State, Loyola of Chicago currently leads the MIVA at 7-1, while Ball State is also 7-1. So this is turning out to be quite the race in the MIVA. It's looking like it's gonna be a back and forth battle. Like, the next meeting between Ball State and Loyola of Chicago is going to probably be the biggest match of the year for both of those teams, just because there's not a whole lot of air when it comes to both Loyola and for Ball State. And both those teams are having phenomenal seasons. Like, Loyola was slated to finish first in the MIVA, but Ball State wasn't even remotely close to having the success it was projected to have, or that is currently have had as of late. So, for me, I think Loyola is going to be a great team to watch out for, as well as Ball State, and I'll be intrigued to see how they do. The two teams meet on April 7th in Chicago, Illinois at the Gentile Center, but we're not going to look that far ahead. We still have a couple more weeks to go until we get to see Ball State and Loyola. But until then, Loyola and Ball State will be looking to try to stay perfect until their next matchup. So elsewhere in the MIVA, we had Lewis and McKendree duking it out. So I'm actually going to jump to the second matchup because, surprisingly enough, Lewis, which has had such a awful season, won the first meeting against McKendree. They won in Romeoville, and I was quite impressed that Lewis was able to win. Excuse me a second. Sorry, I had a quick little sneeze right there. So Lewis surprisingly pulled out a big win, and I don't really know if we can call McKendree a big win, but considering McKendree is having such an underrated season, I think this could be probably the win that Lewis needed, as they pulled off the win on Thursday. Saturday, on the other hand, was a different story, as McKendree needed the win to keep pace with Ball State and Loyola. Another loss would have probably decimated their chances of winning the regular season MIVA title. So the first set, it was quite tight. It wasn't fully tight, but Lewis did take the first set 25-19. 3 ties, 3 lead changes. Lewis had the answer for them. They had Tyler Mitchum. John Davis also stepped up for them. But the second set, it was quite tight. 9 ties, 4 lead changes. McKendree, knowing that they could not afford to fall down 0-2 to Lewis, as they won that set 25-22, as the match was even at 1-1. Then the third set was very tight. There was a whopping 19 lead changes, or 19 ties. 19 ties, 5 lead changes, and Lewis, to my impression, won the third set 25-22. So the fact that I've bagged on Lewis a whole lot this season kind of has me kicking myself. But honestly, Lewis really showed up in that third set despite it being back and forth. Now the fourth set, McKendree really laid the wood all over Lewis. There were no ties, no lead changes. McKendree just stomped all over Lewis, winning that fourth set 25-11. I have never seen McKendree show up and show out in that set. Now, the fifth set, there was only 1 lead changes, but there were 6 ties. Lewis, to their credit, they were in that set through the thick and thin, but McKendree just was able to they were able to just grind it out, pull out that fifth set win, winning 15-13, keeping its slim hopes alive of winning the MIVA regular season title. They will need a little bit of help going forward, and they will need to try to go out there and try to beat the Loyolas and the Ball States. As McKendree pulled off the win, they outdug Lewis 57-51, which wasn't bad. They missed 6 more serves than Lewis, as both teams had 3 service aces. They had 3 more blocks as a team than Lewis, and they held Lewis to only 192. That was the key right there. If Lewis doesn't hit 192, they're probably in a much better situation. McKendree was led by Ethan Carroll, who had 21 kills. He only hit 192, but he did get a little bit of help from Patrick Ross, who had 17 kills. He hit 286. And then Kevin Shuley chipped in 10 digs, or 10 kills. He also chipped in 11 digs. And Francisco Comas and Ross also chipped in 11 digs as well. Ryan Serrano, to go along with his 48 assists, led the team in digs with 14 digs, which was quite nice. And all in all, it was just a strong game from McKendree. This was probably their most crucial game that they needed to win. And honestly, if they don't win this one, it's probably a whole different storyline going into this week. Considering McKendree does have some tough games ahead of them, and they know how tough the MIVA is as of this point. Lewis, on the other hand, was led by Tyler Mitchum, who had 15 kills. He hit 375, while John Davis added 13 kills, hitting only 205. Like I said, hitting 192 does not help the Flyers. They did do well in some categories. They missed a few serves, like I said. They blocked well. But all in all, Lewis just did not have that win that was going to pull them out and pull them closer to the MIVA number 1 seed. Like, to me, I think Lewis is finally starting to get it together. They had themselves a tough week last week, or a couple weeks ago, against Hawaii in the Outrigger tournament. That was kind of the tournament that they kind of needed in order to possibly get their stuff together, get themselves battle-tested. But to me, Lewis is still not striking me as a contender team. McKendree, I think, is very underrated. I think McKendree is probably the most disrespected team out there. The problem is that they keep losing to teams that they probably should possibly beat. I think McKendree has a lot of upside to them, and me personally, I think they have an underrated team, but can they beat the Ball States? Can they beat the Loyolas? Because remember, only one automatic qualifier goes to the NCAA tournament from the MIVA. And you look at the at-larges and some of these other teams that are probably going to vie. You look at the Big West Conference. You have Hawaii, Long Beach State, UC Santa Barbara. Probably one of those teams is probably going to be an at-large. Then you have the MPSF with UCLA, Pepperdine, maybe Grand Canyon. Probably one of those teams is going to be vying for that at-large, and probably one of those teams is going to be emerging as an at-large. And then look at the EIVA, even though Penn State is basically running that conference like a track meet, you never know what they can get if they face a very inspired NJIT team. Like, it could still possibly be... We could still see the best from NJIT come the EIVA tournament. So, those are kind of your Power 4 conferences. The Big West is probably going to get one of the two at-larges. I mean, I can't imagine Santa Barbara or Hawaii/Long Beach State, whichever doesn't emerge from the Big West Conference, winning or getting both at-larges. Like, it would be quite something to see 3 Big West teams get in. And you have to remember, last year, UC San Diego upset Hawaii in the Big West Conference Tournament semifinals. They finished runner-up in the Big West Conference Tournament, but they didn't get in. Meanwhile, Hawaii, which was number 1 throughout 95% of the season, was able to get in despite losing in the semifinals of the Big West Conference Tournament. So, for McKendree, back to them. They will have to show their stuff, especially in the MIVA tournament. Even if they can't win the regular season MIVA conference title, they definitely can show their true potential in the MIVA tournament. It's kind of like March Madness. Anybody can beat anybody at any time, and no team is safe. So that's kind of my little spiel right there. Unfortunately, since I'm doing Set Point on a Sunday, there is no top 15 until tomorrow. So we're kind of going to have to skip it for this week, and we'll just jump to a quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll discuss some NCAA Beach Volleyball, and then we'll have the preview of NCAA Men's Volleyball Week 12. Got a lot of exciting matchups this week, so you are listening to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
From the shores of the Puget Sound to the rushing waters of the Columbia River, stretching across the Great Cascades, and on IE Sports Radio lives the Northwest Territory Sports Show, hosted by me, Brad Buckingham. On this show, I cover all the great collegiate and professional sport teams that we have here in the Pacific Northwest. Of course, I'm talking about the Seattle Seahawks, Seattle Mariners, Sounders, and even the Seattle Kraken. But I can't forget all of that is good in Oregon either. I got the Trailblazers, the Oregon Ducks, the Beavers, even the Timbers, and much, much more. You can listen to the show every Sunday from 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern, noon to 1 p.m. Pacific on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's up, sports fans? Are you looking for the latest on Northern California sports? Then take a trip out west with me, your host, Gina G, on Reppin' the NorCal Sports, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'll be bringing it to you all the way live every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. And it's always a packed show. I'll bring you everything Dynastic 49ers, the bite of the San Jose Sharks, torture of the San Francisco Giants, the Golden State Warriors that we still believe. Then take you across the bay to the rise and grind of the Oakland A's. I've got you covered on college ball from the Cal Bears to the Stanford Cardinal, so that no matter what, reppin' in NorCal sports is always reppin' the Bay. So if you bleed red and gold, or you're looking to keep an eye out west in them thar hills, don't miss me, Gina G, on Reppin' in NorCal Sports. Catch me every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, and I'll have your fandom repped harder than a trio of defenders guarding Stephen Curry before his buzzer beater is Gucci.
What is going on, everybody? My name is Harrison Glazer, and we're coming at you from the Show That Never Sleeps podcast. I cover the Jets, the Islanders, the Nets, and the Yankees.
This is Pierre Moss, and I cover the Mets, Knicks, Rangers, and the Giants.
Our show is live every Wednesday through Spreaker and a bunch of other ways to get our content. Again, we're the Show That Never Sleeps podcast. We talk about all those New York sports. It's a lot of fun. We get into all of it. Please tune in. Again, that's Wednesdays at 6 p.m.
And we look forward to having you guys right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Back with segment number 2 of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Definitely do check out all of our shows such as Northwest Territory Sports with Brad Buckingham. Goes live every Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. You definitely don't want to miss it. He had the week off due to him traveling, but it's all good in the hood. Gina G has her show Reppin' to NorCal Sports every week on Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Pacific time and on Fridays at 6 p.m. Pacific time with Casey Lima. And I appreciate all of your support for Set Point. It really does mean the world. And your support does not go unnoticed, Gina. And also definitely do check out the Show That Never Sleeps with Harrison Glazer and Pierre Moss every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern. The two do a great job of breaking down all New York sports. So, now without any further delay, let's get on into some NCAA Beach Volleyball. So, as of right now, UCLA is taking on LSU, and they just beat LSU 4-1. So, yeah, the Bruins are just dominating. The Bruins just continue to dominate. They have not lost a match this season. However, there were a couple close calls for them this past week as they had to grind it out against a couple teams. They were actually down 0-2 to Florida State, and unfortunately for Florida State, UCLA just had the horses to get back in it and to basically win the meet 3-2. They also had a bit of a close call against Georgia State as they outlasted number 13 Georgia State 3-2. Now, Florida State is a good team. I will say that. Florida State is indeed a good team. And Georgia State is also a little underrated. But why so close? Like, how are you down 0-2 to start? I'm not judging UCLA, but I'm just saying I think no team is safe when it comes to facing the top 5. UCLA is the clear number 1, and then USC is probably the clear number 2. And then 3 through 5 can go anywhere. Like, you have your TCUs, you have your Florida States, you have your LSUs. Now, LSU did lose, obviously, to UCLA, but they also lost to FAU, Florida Atlantic. Yes, they lost to Florida Atlantic today. I was a little surprised to see Florida Atlantic pulling off the win, but you have to give credit to those Owls. they handed them a big statement win. And believe it or not, FAU's win over LSU is the highest ranked upset for the Owls this season. So I'm quite impressed by FAU. And I don't think it was even... FAU was ranked, they were 11th ranked. So good for FAU. I really think Florida Atlantic is going to make the league, or it's going to make this season very interesting, especially when they have to face the Florida States and some of those other teams. So all in all, I think this is kind of a wake-up call for LSU. So we'll see if LSU could bounce back from this. As we say hello to Adam Karnick, as he says, good afternoon/evening, tuning in while making Larry's greatest distraction, pizza. That's pretty funny. And hope that pizza is delicious for you, Adam. I'm sure it will be, just because Chicago makes some darn good pizza. And good luck tomorrow with Chi-Town Weekly. I know you're going to kill it, buddy. So, back to NCAA Beach Volleyball. So, FAU made a statement win, and that is probably going to catapult them into the top 10 of the ABCA Coaches Poll. That'll be coming out every Tuesday. And that's the frustrating thing about the Coaches Poll and me having set point on Mondays primarily. I do set point on Mondays and not on Tuesdays just because of my busy work schedule. And then obviously today is kind of the exception, but I digress from that. But FAU really made a statement win, and I think they can definitely make some noise. They're 9-6, and they're actually 3-0 in the Conference USA. But I think they're very much battle tested. They lost to LSU, they lost to Florida State, which I guess isn't in their conference. They beat Florida Gulf Coast, who was receiving votes. They edged number 18 Stetson, lost to USC, lost to UCLA, barely lost to South Carolina, which I don't think helped them last week. And then they lost to Grand Canyon. But then today was kind of their big statement win, and it was quite the statement win indeed. So all in all, for this weekend, they capped it off with an impressive win over LSU. And honestly, winning these games and playing these games are going to help FAU going forward. Just because Conference USA is going to be quite different. Obviously, you got your UAB, which they beat. They beat UAB twice, and they beat their Southern Miss. But the conference is eventually going to pick itself up. They've got Georgia State, which is going to be quite tough and terrorizing. Florida International is going to be quite tough. And the list goes on. And honestly, I think FAU has the chance to win this conference. My thing is, can they be consistent when it comes to the conference tournament? We'll have to see, and time will tell when it comes to that. But I think I'm getting more confident by FAU by the day. So we'll see how it goes. But LSU, on the other hand, I think for LSU, this is kind of their wake-up call. Just like how USC lost to UCLA a couple weeks ago. And I think for LSU, losing to UCLA is no shame. Now, losing to FAU kind of has a little bit of alarm, but hey, you have a win over LMU. I think that win over LMU kind of outweighs the bad, if you ask me. So, for me, I think LSU can learn from this loss, and they can get better, because they still have some good players on their team. Yes, they graduated their top pair in Teran Rodriguez and, oh goodness, I'm blanking on the other player, but regardless, they did graduate their top pair last season, but honestly, I think LSU still has potential, just because there's a reason why they were top 5 to start the season. If they weren't top 5, they wouldn't have had so much expectations. Like, LSU is definitely a powerhouse. They're perennially good year in and year out. And Kristen Nuss is her partner. So graduating Teran Rodriguez and Kristen Nuss does not help in matters, but I think LSU is adapting well without them. So we'll see how it goes for the Tigers, and I think LSU can go places. See what I did there? Yes, I gotta stop using the whole go pun. As for UCLA, I think their close wins are definitely something to watch for. They're definitely getting challenged, obviously, but to me, I think that UCLA is definitely a strong team, especially when they're beating some of these top-tier teams like Florida State. Like, most teams that are down 0-2 to Florida State are probably just crumbling under pressure. But for UCLA, they're a different breed. Like, there's a reason why they finished runner-up behind USC in the NCAA championship. So, all in all, for UCLA, I think they're doing great things. I think they have potential. I think for me, as long as they play their cards right, I think they will definitely be a team to look out for, and I think they can do great things as well. But I think this season just goes to show that it's anyone's championship to win. I think anyone can win the championship. Like, UCLA has such great pairs like Lexi Denneberg and Abby Van Winkle. Jaden Whitmarsh and Devin Newberry are also a great pair. Jesse Smith and Marley Monserez are also great. So, honestly, I think UCLA has a lot of tools to work with in the box. I just think that it's going to get tougher and tougher, and everyone is going to be all over UCLA. They're all going to be motivated. And some of these underranked teams or unranked teams have nothing to lose when it comes to playing UCLA. Next week, UCLA has Utah, then they have Stanford, and then they have Arizona. Arizona, like I mentioned last week, they lost to Arizona State, which was not good. Utah is kind of an unknown, and then Stanford, to me, is probably their biggest potential challenge this upcoming weekend for next week. And then they don't get to play USC all the way until mid-April. And then they have USC again toward the end of the regular season. So, honestly, I think for UCLA, I hope they're able to shed the close label, but I think this goes to show that they have a big target on their back, and they have to prove that they can beat teams by a little bit more of a bigger margin and not go down 0-2. But I think the LSU win definitely helps their case out of being a strong team. So that is going to do it for NCAA Beach Volleyball Talk. Like I said, I do not have the top 15 or the top 20 for this upcoming week. Otherwise, I probably would have gone over it. But I do have the top 15 for this past week. Obviously, UCLA is the unanimous number one. But for the other top 20, we have Tulane at 20, Florida International at 19, Pepperdine at 18, Stetson at 17, and Arizona at 16. 15 through 11 consists of South Carolina at 15, Long Beach State at 14, Georgia State at 13, Cal Poly at 12, and FAU at 11. 10 through 6 consists of Cal at 10, Hawaii at 9, Stanford at 8, Grand Canyon at 7, and Loyola Marymount at 6. 5 through 1 consists of LSU at 5, Florida State at 4, TCU at 3, USC at 2, and like I said, number 1 is no doubt UCLA. I'm not even going to do the drum roll. Sorry, y'all. So, honestly, I think for me, UCLA is proving themselves, and I think they are a dangerous team going forward. UCLA is starting to become volleyball university. I'm sorry to Long Beach State that has to hear that, but I digress. Soon, though, Long Beach State, soon enough, you will get your chance to become volleyball university. But I digress. All right, that's going to do it for the NCAA Beach Volleyball Talk. Let's jump on into the NCAA Men's Volleyball Week 12 matches to watch for, and then I'll send you all on your way just because everyone wants to probably watch some NCAA March Madness action. So there's that right there. So Week 12, we've got a lot of good matchups to watch for this week. So we'll start with the sneaky good matchups. Starting on Thursday, we have Lewis at Purdue of Fort Wayne. Now, this is the rematch for these two, as Purdue of Fort Wayne swept Lewis in the first meeting at Lewis. I was very surprised to see Purdue of Fort Wayne getting the sweep. And for me, I think that this is a crucial matchup for Lewis, because if they lose this, they're pretty much out of the running for winning the MIVA regular season conference title. But even though the MIVA regular season conference title doesn't truly matter, it's just for seeding purposes for the up-and-coming tournament, I think this would be a crucial win for Lewis to win, considering they have quite a good number of stiff competition going forward. And they still have their Ball States, and they have they're not playing McKendree anymore. They do have their Loyolas. I think they play Loyola this week. And yes, they do play Loyola this week, and it's going to be at home, but more on that later. So, for Lewis, this could be a potential trap game, and more importantly, this could be crucial for any sort of hope of if they want to win in the regular season of the MIVA conference. And they want to improve their MIVA conference standing for the up-and-coming tournament. Also, a sneaky good matchup on Thursday is McKendree at Loyola. I just mentioned this in my previous segment, that McKendree is a very underrated team, and that, believe it or not, Loyola's only conference loss came at the hands of McKendree, which is quite impressive. McKendree did reverse sweep Loyola, so for Loyola to get another crack at McKendree at home would be very crucial for Loyola to win. If they win that matchup, they're pretty much golden, but they cannot look ahead to Saturday. Obviously, Lewis is more so of their rival, but McKendree is just as good of an opponent. Like I said, McKendree is very underrated. They're very underwhelming, and I don't think they get a whole lot of respect they deserve just because they have had a couple of bad losses, but they're playing some good volleyball in conference play, and that's what truly matters. So, for me, I think McKendree is going to be fired up for this matchup and try to take down Loyola a second time, and we'll see if the Ramblers can protect their den in Chicago. Now for the matches to watch for. Starting on Friday, we have UC Irvine at UC San Diego. So UC San Diego and UC Irvine both have one thing in common. They're both getting the shaft when it comes to the conference, but they do have big wins over their conference foes. UC Irvine having defeated Long Beach State last week, and then a couple weeks ago, UC San Diego defeating Hawaii. And now these two teams face off against one another. I will be honest, it's really tough to predict a winner for this matchup just because UC San Diego is really good at the Rimac Arena, and UC Irvine only has a whopping one road win. That's very concerning if you're the Anteaters. They kind of got to have to change that if they want to have success. Fortunately for them, they do get to play UC San Diego a second time at the Brent Event Center, but the Rimac Arena is kind of UC San Diego's little dome and protection. And also, it's a little bit of a steep drive from Irvine all the way to San Diego, so we'll see if UC San Diego can continue its strong season against UC Irvine. I feel San Diego has quite the number of talent and weapons, especially with Kyle McCauley, but honestly, Francisco Sani is doing really good, and I think that UC Irvine is going to prove to be a challenge for the Tritons. Jumping on over to the MPSF, we have USC at Stanford. So it's another two-game homestand for the Cardinal. Now, everyone is probably thinking, okay, Stanford is kind of an underdog, but you remember what they did a couple weeks ago, or last week. They upset UCLA. Honestly, I would not be surprised if Stanford defeated USC. I don't know if USC is the most consistent team out there. They've been quite consistent the past few weeks, but against Stanford, I don't know. It's at Maples Pavilion. It's such a tough place to win at. And for me, I think USC could have its trouble against the Cardinal. As Gina says, go Cardinal. But for me, I think Stanford is going to have to play its A game if they want to take down this talented Trojan team. So we'll see if Stanford can pull off another win. For me, USC needs the win more so than Stanford does. If they want to have the number 1 seed there in the MPSF tournament, they're going to need all the wins that they can muster up, especially since next week UCLA has their matchup against UCLA, or USC has their matchup against UCLA, and that's going to be crucial right there. So I think for me, USC has to play to Stanford's level, if not above Stanford's level, and they can't afford to look ahead. Like, this has trap series written all over it for the Trojans. And then for my series of the week, starting on Friday, we have UC Santa Barbara at Long Beach State. For me, this is very crucial for Long Beach State. Now that they lost to UC Irvine, they can't really afford too many losses to any more Big West Conference teams. For UC Santa Barbara, they're actually chilling out in first place, but they haven't really faced anyone all that much. They defeated Cal State Northridge, which, no offense to Northridge, they did beat Stanford, which was ranked, but Northridge isn't that impressive. For the Gauchos, they also beat UC San Diego, but this would be a statement series win if they were to take one, if not two, matches against Long Beach State. If they were to take both matches, that'd be amazing for UC Santa Barbara. But for me, I think taking one match against Long Beach State would be essential. Now, obviously, winning at the Pyramid is going to be easier said than done for the Gauchos, but they do have a lot of talent. Keep in mind, this is a UC Santa Barbara team that graduated 4 All-Americans last season, and they did not have the expectations that everyone else thought they would have. And then they were able to turn it around, and honestly, I think UC Santa Barbara has that potential, and they have the talent to knock off some of these titans in the Big West Conference. So we'll see what happens when it comes to the Gauchos going forward. And honestly, I really think that this is going to be a barn burner. I really want to go to this matchup on Friday, but I have other things to do on Friday, as Gina says she's got to run, and she says great show as always. Gina has her live broadcast of her round of 32 matchup. It is between Notre Dame and Texas Tech, and that is going to be going live momentarily on our sister stations. So definitely do keep your ears open for that little promotion from Set Point. Jumping on into Saturday's matchups. So outside of the matchups that I just mentioned earlier, excuse me a sec. Sorry about that. So outside of the Saturday matchups that I just mentioned on Friday, we have Loyola and at Lewis. So this is a crucial matchup for both the Ramblers and the Flyers. I think this is going to be crucial for Loyola mostly, and they've got a lot to play for. They could be playing for the number 1 seed, they could be playing for bragging rights, and you never know what could happen with Ball State. I think this is all the pressure is on Loyola more so than Lewis. Lewis obviously has the home crowd behind him, and that could be what tilts the scale to them. And for Lewis, they had themselves a great start this season in terms of non-conference play, and then they kind of cooled off when it came to losing to some of these conference opponents such as Lindenwood and Purdue of Fort Wayne. So for me, Lewis beating Loyola would be a big win for the Flyers. But for the Ramblers, they need all the conference wins they can get muster up, just because getting that number 1 seed would be key right there, even though I think every team in the MIVA is willing to beat one another. So I think for me, this is also a crucial matchup and definitely a matchup to watch for in the MIVA. I think Lewis and Loyola is a great rivalry, great interstate rivalry. Romeoville versus Chicago, Flyers versus Ramblers. It's just a great little rivalry, and I can't wait to see who comes out on top between the Flyers and the Ramblers. Also, another crucial Saturday matchup is UC San Diego at UC Irvine. So this is what I mean by UC Irvine will get another chance at UC San Diego. UC Irvine will get to play the Tritons at the Bren Event Center, as the Anteaters have had more success at the Bren than they have had on the road. And honestly, I would not be surprised if UC Irvine beat UC San Diego at the Bren. However, UC San Diego knows that its margin of error for possibly wanting to win the regular season Big West Conference Championship is very slim, especially since you never know what team you could run into when it comes to the Big West Conference Tournament. Like, you can get the Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde of any team in the Big West Conference Tournament, just because it's so stacked. Like, a lot of teams can beat a lot of teams, so we'll see what happens when it comes to UC Irvine and UC San Diego. Once again, UC Irvine has had quite a bit of success at the Bren, and obviously that's a long drive for UC San Diego, especially when it comes to Saturday traffic. I don't know if Saturday traffic is worse than Friday traffic when it comes to California, but I imagine it's just as bad. Jumping back to the MPSF, we have USC at Stanford round 2. Once again, just like before, USC has to play perfect. I wouldn't say they have to play perfect, but they cannot afford to look ahead to UCLA. Obviously, this has Trap Series written all over it. However, for Stanford, they don't really have much to lose. They have one conference win. I don't think they're too worried about conference wins and losses when it comes to winning the MPSF, just because I think winning the MPSF might be out of the question for them, especially after losing to Concordia of Irvine. So for Stanford, they have the chance to play spoiler, and it would be quite amazing if they were to pull off another big win over a Southern California team. Just because Stanford hasn't really they've had their ups and downs, like I said. They were able to beat UC Irvine. They beat number 1 UCLA last week. Beating USC could be tough, but they could be the Jacksonville Jaguars of the MPSF, playing spoiler to teams that do have aspirations of winning the MPSF regular season championship and having good seeding. So we'll see what happens with USC and Stanford. I think Stanford is very underrated, especially with Will Rotman and Luke Turner. That's a great 1-2 punch outside and right side hitter combination. I think those two are great six rotation players, and I think that Stanford could give USC trouble. So we'll see. And then closing out the matches to watch for this week, we have Long Beach State at UC Santa Barbara. So it's a long trip for Long Beach State, as they have to head up to God's country, as one of my friends would call it, to take on UC Santa Barbara. Last time Long Beach State played in the Thunderdome, the Gauchos were able to get the early jump on them and win the match. So for the Beach, like I said, it's a crucial matchup for Long Beach State. They have to win this matchup if they want to be the number 1 seed and win the regular season Big West Conference title. Again, their margin of error ever since last week's loss to UC Irvine is very thin. It's not as big as it once was. And just because the Big West Conference is very loaded, like, I think UC Santa Barbara is probably, of all the teams that was picked to have success, I think UC Santa Barbara would have been the second to last team for UC Santa Barbara to have success, especially when they lost twice to USC early on. But I think everyone now knows that USC is a great team and that UC Santa Barbara is also picking up steam, having beaten Pepperdine in a rematch of last year's NCAA tournament matchup. So I think for the Gauchos, they really are going to have to play some near-perfect volleyball. I think they do have the potential to knock off Long Beach State. Long Beach State has shown a couple cracks. They almost dropped a set against Concordia last week. But for Long Beach State, they're picking up the pieces. They're starting to find their footing. And they have a young team, but they also have an experienced team that definitely is hungry for wins. And more importantly, I think Long Beach State has the potential to basically become the big man on campus, or big men in terms of the Big West. They have proven that in years past, and other than last year, they definitely were able to move on. They've definitely moved on from the TJ DeFalco and Josh Tuaniga era. I think Long Beach State has moved on from that era, and they're finding their new TJ DeFalco And I think Aiden Knipe has done a great job at the setter position. He's not tall, but honestly, I think he just does so great. And more importantly, Alex Nikolov has just been the truth. He has definitely been great. My only thing for Long Beach State would be to get the middles involved. Get Grant Maroki involved. Get Shane Holdaway involved. Get Mark Moody involved. Get the middles involved. Just like in football, when you run the middle, great things will happen for you. You've got to run the middle. You've got to get them going. Otherwise, everyone on the other side of the net is going to be super prepared for your right side and left side hitters, such as Clark Godbold, Spencer Olivier, or Alex Nikolov. But all in all, I think Santa Barbara, Long Beach State is going to be a big barn burner. I kind of didn't want to pick this matchup as match of the week, but there was just no other matchup that I'd choose from. I had a feeling, what I said with this week, Santa Barbara, Long Beach State is going to be match of the week. No doubt about it. And indeed they are, and if anyone wants to argue, you know where to find me. So that's going to do it for NCAA Men's Volleyball Week 12's matchups to watch for and sneaky good matchups. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for this week's episode of Set Point. I know it's not quite the full hour, but what can you do? Without any further delay, let's drop that beat, because I'm about to dip like a banana in chocolate. You feel me? Thank you everyone for tuning in to Set Point. I know I wasn't 100%. I know it's a Sunday, and you're most likely used to hearing me on a Monday. What can you do? If you listen live, I appreciate you. If you listen on the playback, I appreciate you. If you listen at any point, at any time, anywhere, I appreciate you. Big shout to the chat room that was popping like popcorn. Gina G, Adam Karnick, I really do appreciate you and sticking with me as long as you can. Gina obviously said she had to dip because of her live broadcast, but I totally understand. I appreciate you, the listeners, for your support, because Set Point has been running for over 2 years. It has not had a week off since March 2nd of 2020. Ever since, Set Point has been running, and I'm going to continue to make it run, no matter what the circumstances. The show must go on, and thank you, Adam, for saying good show, Teran. I appreciate you tuning in. Had to show some love to Loyola of Chicago, just because it's kind of your home city, and obviously Loyola of Chicago men's basketball didn't really have the greatest of luck. Hopefully Sister Jean can be at the Loyola of Chicago men's volleyball matches, because they'll need all that they can get going forward. So, for everyone here at iSports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. You all have yourself a great rest of the week. Be safe, be kind to one another, don't be a stranger, don't find yourself on Dum Dum of the Week for the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. And I will see you probably on Saturday, maybe Friday. We'll see. Peace!